The format today is going to be slightly different because of the subject at large. Lest you think that I have lost my marbles and have started seeing anything as sacred, today we're going to discuss wills and what to do when we can't speak for ourselves, and what to do when all care becomes palliative. Well, kinda. Let's get to it. This is a very complex subject, and like I do with a lot of the darker, more complex subjects, I typically like to look at them through a lens of humor to make them not so bad. But first things first, I'm going to cut out the sarcastic asides for this video that I tend to pop in, sort of a "did you catch it? Good on ya" kind of thing. This is a subject that has gotten with me, and I have old fears and nightmares about being locked away because I have no capacity to speak for myself, or that no one's listening, or that I've become too sick to be able to speak for myself or become a burden. I've taken care of a lot of this on my own. I'm sorry for the voice. This is emotional, so content warning. There's a lot of emotion here, and it's a very dark subject, but hopefully I can help guide you. The living will that we're familiar with, things starting out with things like, I want this treatment, or if I am in such a way that there is no more treatment that can help me, then I want, let's say, I don't want to be, if I'm unconscious and I cannot be saved, if I am so sick that I cannot be cured, and there's nothing more to do than make me comfortable. I do not want tube feeding. I do not want this. I don't want artificial respiration. I would like to be given the capacity to be let go gracefully. And then, of course, you have the wills for what you want after death. For example, I, Chesterfield C. Ottoman, being of sound mind and body, would like to give my entire fortune, bar a lifetime supply of chocolate ice cream and my whiskey preserves, to the city of Calgary, Alberta, just because I need to do this and maybe hopefully lighten things up. Like I said, I still see nothing as sacred. But anyway, back to, so Chesterfield would meet with an attorney to ensure that his wishes are kept, and that any pecuniary expenses and any taxes and any parts of his apparent large fortune, minus the ice cream and the whiskey, get to their intended recipient after you pay the taxes. And I cannot tell you how estate tax works. Thankfully, my voice has stopped doing that because I can somewhat breathe again and I don't feel wibbly. this may return, so warning, I may sound like I'm about ready to cry. Yeah. Okay. So Chesterfield, to make sure that his money gets to the people of Calgary. You may have noticed that I'm stealing a joke from the Frantics, the famous last will and temperament routine. Let's just hope that one of Chesterfield's wishes is not to put a live badger down his lawyer's trousers. So, okay. So we're going to start with if I cannot be helped, if I am just suffering, if everything here is palliative. Making sure that there are, let's say, there's a human here, whether it's a home nurse, whether it's a relative, whether it's a combination of relatives and home nurses, from hospice, which tends to visit now, to ensure that, that the patient is comfortable, that everything is, because they still have to live, and while they're living, they deserve to be comfortable. They deserve to feel all the comforts of being alive, and if they, for example, like strawberry milkshakes, like my grandma did, pop by, pop by at least once a week and bring her a strawberry milkshake. Have one with her. My personal favorite is chocolate, for example, but I've discovered that strawberry and chocolate go really well together. I'll get there. On the subject of the legal paperwork and what they want during and what they want after their death, how they want to be dressed, what shoes they want to wear, what brassiere a woman might want underneath her garb, whether or not you want the undertaker to put eyeliner on you. Make sure that you have that written down. You have that with a trusted individual and or who can keep that in a safe or in an other safe area. But seriously, never mind. That's not a subject for me. There are some subjects that should be discussed with the mortician. In this case, you will need to be visiting with and make sure that you know your rights in that area as well. Don't let them mess you out of a gazillion bucks when you could probably afford something sweet and simple. Make sure that any religious duties, I think for Muslims and the Jewish people, I couldn't find the word I wanted, but for Muslims and people of the Jewish faith, I think you want them to be buried within 24 hours of their demise, so make sure that you talk with the undertaker about that. Make sure that, all the different duties that might need to be performed are performed. Make sure that you contact the priest, the rabbi, the minister, etc., and make sure that you continue to visit and that you make sure that they know they're loved and you want all the comforts in the world for them. If they can't eat by mouth, just be there, even if they're being tube fed, and it might look a bit scary and it might sound really scary. Know that sometimes people who are dying may have a moment where they suddenly seem much better. They're in really high spirits. They're looking almost healthy. It can be a bit of a shock, the back and forth and the cruel things that the process does. And if the person cannot speak for themselves, because of Alzheimer's, dementia, medications that can cause confusion, please be a gentle voice for them, but be one that says, that is not okay, or, well, grandma likes this, or grandma would want this, grandma wouldn't appreciate that, or can I wash grandma? Give her the familial touch, as opposed to something rather cold and clinical. Yeah. That's another thing. Death takes away a lot of warmth, a lot of the dignity and the family aspect sometimes, and the person that you know, daddy or grandma just doesn't look like themselves anymore. They don't look right. They're not acting right. You know they're there, and you know that you love them, and that you know they love you, but they're just... It's hard to see the forest through the trees, so I would maybe suggest just making sure they know that they're loved, and that if they're in pain and they're not themselves, it's okay, and you love them, and you know that they're there. Be wary of internet will services and internet proxy servers. I can actually speak on the proxy thing, although I also do have a will. I can speak on the proxy thing. I am blessed to have people who care for me and want to ensure that my fear of being somewhat locked into myself, or locked up and unable to speak for myself and unable to say these are my needs, or having things taken from me because people think, well, you know, she doesn't need them anymore, or, well, you know, she can't tell me no, don't happen. And I am blessed to have multiple people, and I was blessed to get the help from my sister from another mister, who took me to see a really good attorney. Do not do proxies online. You actually want to talk with an attorney in person. Yes, it may cost you bazonga buckaroonies, but it's worth it. And who sat down with me with an attorney for multiple hours on end and got a proxy done with me so that I'm protected in the event of something bad. By the way, sister, oh my G, I thank you so much. And also, if anyone needs a good attorney and lives in my neck of the woods, at me, yo. I have the attorney for you. We also apparently say my neck of the woods in my neck of the woods. I know, right? So I definitely go see an attorney. If you're too sick to travel, have one come to visit you. And ensure that you get any will paperwork, any proxy paperwork from a reputable source. And sometimes you get what you pay for, so I'm not saying this is going to be cheap. This is going to cost you out the yin yang. Yeah. But it's worth the yin yang, I suppose you'd say. And and just know that I know in my faith we're called to care for the dying and the sick and the widow and the orphan. We don't use some of those terms anymore. But so when you're visiting someone who is very badly ill, when they're chronically ill, or when You know that right at this point, all care is palliative. Don't walk in and be like, oh, how terrible. Oh, this is just awful. Everything's so depressing. Everything's so sad. Come bearing milkshakes. And if they can eat or drink by mouth, make sure that you ask. But, bring a good time. And, people who are chronically ill can still be 24-hour party peoples. Seriously, it's 5 o'clock. Seriously, it's 6:30 a.m. here, and I have been, because I couldn't sleep properly, mulling over the information I typically give when chronic illness and for living wills and proxies for a few hours. But anyway, so I'm very sleepy 24-hour party peoples, but I can't rest right now. So bring in the fun, bring in the humor. Remember that they haven't lost their sense of humor, and they haven't lost their capacity to love or their favorite things. It's just that right now their body is exhausted, but they're there. Just talk, even if they can't. Tell them about the Sabres game or what you did last week. I mean, don't be like, oh yeah, and don't sound like a Christmas letter. One of the most frustrating things was once I was in the hospital and someone was verbalizing their Christmas letter, and I'm just sitting here like, okay, I think I'm having a better time than you were, and I'm in a single-size bed with tubes in both arms. I have nothing, by the way, against Christmas letters. I appreciate some, most, 99.9%, but some people, oh, by the way, Jenny got into Harvard, but she thinks that going to Europe for a year is better. I want to hear more about your son, Willow, who is... I want to hear about your son, Willow, who is in South Africa, bottle feeding baby tigers and working in a zoo for disadvantaged gorillas. I'm not going to put in any links to, say, living will kits. I am going to tell you that if you're around my area and you need a good attorney for a living will, a medical proxy, I have that information and I will get that to you. Just let me know. If not, definitely look that up. If I can't physically be there, I will at least still try to be there to hold your hand in spirit. Right. Take good care. You're loved. And all of that other stuff.